The sun hung low over the jagged horizon, spilling amber light across the expanse of dusty prairie, casting long, trembling shadows across the dry, cracked earth. Dust danced in the faint wind, twirling and settling like forgotten memories, as Clara approached the lone cabin perched at the edge of Cade's ranch. She moved deliberately, each step measured, the hem of her skirt brushing against parched grass, her shawl clinging to her shoulders like a second skin. At 24, she carried herself with a grace that spoke of quiet resilience, yet there was a weight beneath her gaze, a history of battles fought in silence, victories claimed with dignity, but at a cost few understood. Her fingers tightened around the small bundle in her arms, the meager possessions of a life uprooted, her knuckles pale against the fabric. Cade stood at the doorway, tall and rigid, broad shoulders silhouetted against the fiery horizon. He was 33, but the lines etched across his face spoke of a lifetime of loss and solitude far beyond his years. His eyes, a stormy gray, scanned her with a mixture of caution and barely concealed pain, a man who had long since learned the danger of letting anyone close. His hands rested on the rough wooden frame, strong yet steady, betraying a control over the world that was meticulously maintained. When he spoke, his voice was low measured and tinged with the sharp edge of warning. Keep your eyes lowered and leave as soon as possible. Clara's lips pressed into a thin line, her chest tightening at the coldness of his words. Yet she did not flinch. She dipped her gaze, not from fear, but from habit, the silent obedience a shield against a world that often demanded too much and gave too little. She stepped onto the creaking porch, feeling the unsteady boards beneath her boots, the smell of weathered wood and sun-baked dust mingling with the faint scent of horses and leather. Cade's eyes lingered on her movements, noting the way her shoulders held a subtle strength even in submission, the careful precision of someone accustomed to carrying burdens alone. The cabin door groaned as she pushed it open, the interior dark and cool in contrast to the harsh sunlight outside. Dust motes hovered in the air, suspended in the golden shafts of light that slanted through cracks in the walls. A single chair sat against the far wall, its wood scarred by time and neglect. Clara set her bundle down, brushing invisible dirt from her skirt, the soft rustle echoing through the quiet space. She looked up at Cade, whose expression had not softened, yet there was a flicker of curiosity in his guarded eyes, a question unspoken and heavy between them. Days passed with slow, measured rhythms. Clara went about her work quietly, sweeping the cabin, arranging the woodpile, tidying the small corners of the home that Cade had long ignored. She hummed softly at times, a low melodic sound that seemed almost foreign in the cabin's austerity, yet carried a warmth that seeped into the air and lodged in Cade's chest. At first, he watched with suspicion, his posture tense, his jaw set. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began to notice her presence not as an intrusion, but as a balm. Her kindness was not loud or demanding. It was steady, unwavering, a quiet insistence on being seen and understood without the need for explanation. Clara never asked for anything in return. She did not seek approval or gratitude, and yet her eyes always met his when words failed, conveying understanding and empathy that had long been absent from his life. Cade found himself drawn to the gentle rhythm of her work, the soft cadence of her voice as she spoke to the horses in the corral, the way she paused to admire the sunset or the simple beauty of a wildflower clinging to life in the dust. Each small gesture chipped away at the walls he had built, layer by layer, brick by brick, until the sharp edges of his anger and grief began to dull. The other inhabitants of the ranch observed silently. The old neighbor, a wizened man with eyes like polished stone, whispered cautiously to anyone who would listen that Clara's patience was unlike anything he had seen. The young stable hand, barely more than a boy, watched her with quiet admiration, noting the steadiness of her hands, the resilience that belied her age. These side glances, these muted judgments, formed a chorus of subtle acknowledgment, reinforcing the fact that Clara was not merely surviving. She was transforming the space around her through sheer presence. One evening, the sky grew heavy with rolling clouds, the air thick with the promise of a storm. Cade moved about the ranch with deliberate care, securing the horses, tying down equipment. his face taut with concentration. Clara, despite the tension in the atmosphere, moved alongside him, offering a steady hand when he struggled, her touch light but insistent. There was no need for words. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside Cade, a turbulence that demanded attention and release. As the first streaks of lightning split the sky, Cade finally spoke, voice low, almost reluctant. "You don't have to stay. You can leave before it hits." Clara shook her head gently, a small, determined smile playing at her lips. "I'll stay," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "I can help." The storm broke in earnest moments later, wind whipping across the prairie, rain hammering against the wooden walls with relentless insistence. Cade and Clara moved in tandem, securing the loose boards, guiding the frightened horses into the shelter of the stable. The air was thick with tension, every drop of rain a reminder of vulnerability, every gust of wind a challenge to the fragile trust forming between them. Cade's hands, roughened by years of labor, brushed against hers more than once, a touch that carried no pretense, only the unspoken acknowledgement of reliance and the stirrings of something deeper. By the time the storm subsided, the world was quiet once more, washed clean in the muted glow of twilight. They stood outside the cabin, rain dripping from their hair and clothes, their breaths misting in the cool air. Cade's gray eyes, storm-dark yet softened, met hers, and for the first time he did not avert his gaze. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of shared struggle, a tentative trust, a fragile understanding that life could be different if they allowed it. In the days that followed, Cade began to share fragments of himself. A letter he had never sent, worn at the edges and faded by years of neglect. A keepsake, small and inconsequential to anyone else, yet carrying the weight of a memory he had tried to bury. Each revelation was met by Clara with quiet attentiveness, her presence never demanding, never intrusive, only offering a safe harbor for the broken pieces he revealed. Poetic moments threaded through the mundane. The way she dried the sweat from his brow, the gentle brush of her hand against the dusted wood, the warmth of her smile that made the cabin feel less like a fortress and more like home. The emotional tension reached its peak one late afternoon. Cade had been unusually silent, pacing the cabin with a storm behind his eyes that no rain could quell. Clara, sensing the fragility of the moment, approached carefully, her voice soft, deliberate. "You don't have to carry it alone," she whispered. His shoulders tensed, the memories and regrets pressing heavily against him. Yet he did not push her away. Instead, he exhaled slowly, letting the tension seep from his body as he finally allowed a glimmer of vulnerability to surface. As the sky blushed with the fading light of day, Kate turned to her fully, the first flicker of something resembling hope in his gaze. His voice, low and deliberate, broke the silence. "I've told everyone to leave, but not you. You've made me see, feel, something I thought was gone." Clara's chest tightened, her heart responding to the raw honesty in his tone. She stepped closer, the distance between them charged with the weight of unspoken words and shared experiences, the quiet storms of their pasts meeting in this singular moment. Cade's hands trembled slightly as he reached for hers, the gesture tentative but earnest. "Clara," he said, eyes glistening with unshed emotion, "I don't want to be without you. You've healed parts of me I thought I'd lost forever." The words landed softly but decisively, each one a key unlocking the doors he had long kept closed. Clara's lips parted, a single tear escaping to trace a path down her cheek. She placed her hand over his, a gentle affirmation of everything unspoken, her own emotions spilling freely in response to his confession. The cabin, the ranch, the world beyond seemed to pause, as if the earth itself had recognized the significance of this union of wounded yet courageous souls. The storm that had raged within Cade's heart had finally found its quiet, and Clara's steadfast presence had guided him to shore. Around them, the side characters, silent witnesses to this slow-blooming connection, observed with quiet smiles, understanding that what they had witnessed was not mere romance, but the fragile, extraordinary process of trust and healing. Night descended gently, the sky a tapestry of stars reflecting the calm that had settled over the land. Cade and Clara remained close, their hands entwined, breathing in unison, each heartbeat a testament to the journey they had undertaken together. There was no rush, no grand declarations beyond the honesty they had finally shared. The world outside could wait. In this cabin, in this space forged by resilience and kindness, they had found something enduring, a quiet promise that life, though harsh and unpredictable, could also be tender and transformative. The narrator, if one could be imagined in the wind-whispered dust and the soft glow of lanterns, might have said then what is always true. Love does not arrive with fanfare. It seeps quietly, insistently, into the corners of our lives where we have long feared vulnerability. It grows not from grandeur, but from patience, from the courage to show up again and again, from the willingness to see someone holy, flaws and all, and to hold them gently nonetheless. As Cade's lips brushed the top of her hand, Clara's eyes glimmered with the sheen of unshed tears and dawning joy. The cabin, once a fortress of solitude and grief, now bore witness to a new kind of courage. The bravery to trust, the daring to love, and the beauty of two souls quietly mending together. And in that golden hour, as the prairie exhaled and the wind carried whispers of hope through the long grasses, there was no question left unanswered, no fear left unchallenged. They had arrived at the thrilling, satisfying conclusion of a journey neither expected, but both needed, a climax built not on explosions or confrontation, but on the profound simplicity of shared humanity and unguarded hearts. The night deepened, yet they remained outside, hands intertwined, eyes fixed on the horizon, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together, tempered by past pain, but strengthened by newfound trust. And in the quiet, the narrator might have leaned close, voice like an ember in a hearth, reminding those who listened that the wilds of the world can be harsh, but hearts, when tenderly tended, can bloom against even the driest winds.